Buenas tardes, welcome. Thank you for attending, and thank you for our panelists. It hasn't been easy to find where we should be coming, but we make our way. We've got limited time. The idea is to spend the first hour discussing about investment opportunities, investment tools, how in each of the jurisdiction we approach investment arbitration. That is more or less the plan for the first hour. And the second hour, we would very much welcome questions and comments from the floor and from the different panelists present. So if this is fine with you, we'll start with our keynote speaker to avoid really losing the first 10 minutes going through their CVs. I will go straight to the question, and I will thank them for introducing themselves, where they come from, and what is their experience in 15 seconds. That, for a lawyer, is a real challenge. I've never seen that, we've never matched with that challenge, but I think today we're going to be able to do it. So the first topic that we wanted to go through is what are the tools, what are the legal tools that makes in each of the jurisdiction investment attractive for foreign investor in each of the jurisdiction. I would like to first ask Rafael Bustamante to explain what are the tools, the legal tool that makes attractive coming to your jurisdiction.
I will first use my 15 seconds to introduce myself.
I'm counting.
My name is José Rafael Bustamante. I come from Ecuador, and I'm a managing partner of the Bustamante & Bustamante law firm, and I'm a corporate lawyer, advisor for foreign investors into the country. Ecuador needs foreign investment, local investment as well, and our 4 reasons to invest in our country. Our constitution provides equal rights to local or foreign investors. And following that concept, in December 2010, a law was enacted to promote incentive and commerce and production and investments. And 3 basic points in this law. There's no arbitration clauses allowed. As to arbitrary measures, I mean, not to disputes. There's no discriminatory measures, and there's a big incentive on taxes for the first 10 years if there's a new investment over $1 million. And under such law, there is an opportunity that is used and has to be used by an investor, which is an investment contract or agreement, in which the investors in the country, in the state, can agree on the conditions, can agree on the amount, can agree on settlement of disputes, that is either in local or foreign arbitration, and we will speak later on the importance of settling possibility of international arbitration. And the last I want to mention under this short time is our economic monetary scheme. We are a dollarized country. With this, I don't mean we have our local currency equivalent with a foreign currency. We only have a dollar as our only currency. Therefore, investors do not have issues of devaluation. They have absolutely liberty to repatriate funds or to distribute dividends. So that is especially for economies, that makes it easier, and security. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you very much, and thank you very much for being very concise. I think it's been a very clear message about equal opportunities, no arbitration, on balance, which is an important message. What about Bolivia, Carlos? Is similar to different?
It is very different nowadays. My name is Carlos Guerque. I am a professor of constitutional law. I turned 20 years old as a professor of constitutional law this year. But I'm also a partner at the Guerque law firm, which focuses on defending the rights of foreign investors and local investors. The first years of my practice, we've been constructing the institutions, we've been drafting laws that were intended to protect the investors' rights. But that was during the 1990s. At the beginning of this century, things changed in Bolivia. Of course, there were great discoveries of reserves of gas, minerals, and the country benefited a lot from the foreign investments. But the change in politics following the socialism of the 21st century, or the Chavez way of thinking, the new government started to mine all these institutions. So my practice focused on disinvestments from foreign investors and how to protect them. So we had to go through arbitrations and bilateral investment treaties protections. But now we are again on a game-changing situation. We are trying to rebuild the institutions, the rule of law in Bolivia, and we think that the next 2 or 3 years there will be a recovery on the protections for investors that will come from outside Bolivia. Bolivia is very rich, has lots of gas, lots of minerals, has soybeans, has a bigger market, and most of our populations have left extreme poverty. So it's a very interesting place to be. It's in the right in the middle of South America, which makes it very attractive. So I think that everybody that bets on the reconstruction of the institutional frame in Bolivia will see benefits in the middle term future.
Okay, thank you. So it seems it's a challenging place to go.
It is.
So from Brazil, I think that Francisco Petros will give us a view in Brazilian, please.
Okay, my name is
Please.
Francisco Petros. I am a lawyer, partner of Fernandes Figueiredo, François and Petros, advogados. And I think that the opportunities in Brazil, it's important to point out that the legal framework in Brazil, since the beginnings of 50s in last century, are very focused on to attract the foreign investment. So there is no big problems in the legal frameworks in terms of dividend remittance, in terms of repatriation of the loans and direct investments and other issues. And currently the financial and exchange position of Brazil is stronger than in comparison the last 2 decades. This year, a populist government was elected. The political equation for this government, it's not very, there are some uncertainties, but in terms of economic issues, the trend is the regulation, privatization, and the introduction of market rules, or to increase the market rules, especially in the infrastructure sector and energy and the other investments in technology, for example. So I think that the trend is quite positive on this economic side. And also in terms of jurisdiction, we have the private jurisdiction in arbitration. Arbitration is quite important. For example, right now, for the Brazilian investors, we have a very important process in the exchange of São Paulo, because the Petrobras case, it's a big arbitration. after the settlement in the class action and DOJ and the SEC, the developments of this arbitration will be a benchmark for the arbitration in Brazil for the Brazilians. We are very optimistic for the next year regarding the economic growth. We expect something between 3 and 4% per year. And also the interest rate environment is quite positive with a very low real interest rate. So Brazil is in all important streets in terms of legal protection and also investments and environment, etc. We expect it to maintain this position internationally, and in natural resources, we expect a big improvement in terms of protection of forest, etc., but also to make easier for investors to take positions in the natural resources companies. In general terms, that's it.
So thank you. What a broad view. I think it's good if Rodrigo, also from Brazil, can continue with that same perspective from.
Okay, thank you very much, Paulino. My name is Rodrigo Colares. I'm a partner at Da Fonte Advogados in Brazil. I focus my practice very much in direct investments, both national and international. I think I just have to add very small pieces of comments. We have a very clear legal framework for infrastructure in Brazil. Since the 1995, we have a general law of public grants, public licenses. And in each very specific sector, we have also specific frameworks for that. The normal structure for foreign investor to come to Brazil is to incorporate a business in Brazil, normally by a limited liability company or corporation, which is very much similar to what we have here also in Spain, in most European countries. We have the normal way for one to be part of an infrastructure public project is through international bids, and it works. It's been working for a long time here in Brazil. And I think that the main sectors that are going to foster the liberalization are going to be the airports and energy. And mainly the energy sector is going through this year probably a reform in the legal framework towards an easier way for international investors also to come to Brazil. The requirements are all the same. We don't make any difference between national and international investors, which is very important. And I think this is what I had to add. Thank you.
So just for me to be clear, so in Brazil, you need to incorporate a vehicle in order to invest.
The normal
but
way,
we were commenting before that from the Ecuador perspective, there is a 10 years incentive, tax incentive. Is there anything similar in Brazil for investors?
We have in very specific sectors. So, for example, if a foreign investor wants to open an industry in some sector, because we have 3 levels of taxes, so maybe a state might grant some sorts of benefit. So, for example, when Fiat opened a new factory in the northeast of Brazil, they had 15 years of tax benefits. So it's very normal for one to negotiate with the government this sort of benefit.
Sure. Tax is always something to consider before investing. So that is why I was trying to put the emphasis on that. What about Colombia? Gabriel, please, can you take us through where you are.
Muy buenos días, mi nombre es Gabriel Fernández, yo soy abogado de Cremades&Calvo-Sotelo, soy socio de la firma, soy colombiano de origen. Me gustaría destacar esencialmente tres grandes rasgos de la economía y del Estado de Derecho solvente y fuerte que tiene Colombia en el momento actual. Por una parte, ha sido el destino preferente de la inversión europea en los últimos 3 años. El último año, el país que más ha experimentado crecimientos porcentuales ha sido Colombia. Es un país que ha adelantado procesos de reforma en el ámbito regulatorio y en el ámbito de la supervisión más potentes en América Latina. Y esto lo digo en un contexto donde la regulación y la supervisión es uno de los 3 pilares fundamentales de la sociedad y de la economía del conocimiento. De la implantación de la sociedad y economía del conocimiento depende el 80% de las diferencias entre regiones y entre países. Y en este aspecto puntual, Colombia ha logrado hacer reformas considerables para ofrecer más independencia, más autonomía a todos los sectores reguladores en el país. Hoy en día, en toda América Latina, o bien ha habido procesos que han llegado a buen término, o están en este momento en desarrollo, o están a punto de ser iniciados. Pero no hay ningún país en América Latina que no haya desarrollado procesos de reforma para dar más nivel de autonomía, de independencia y de calidad a la administración pública de regulación y supervisión. Y en concreto, si tuviese que hacer un ranking en el contexto latinoamericano, esto teniendo como referencia los estudios de la OCDE, del Banco Mundial, del BID, de la CEPAL, posiblemente las 3 grandes economías en América Latina que ofrecen mayor nivel de estabilidad, de solvencia, de predictibilidad, hoy en día son Colombia, Perú, México. Siguen en un escalón muy próximo, igualmente, Brasil, Argentina, Chile, Ecuador y Panamá. Y por último, hay una serie de países que deben mejorar, según los informes internacionales, como puede ser Venezuela de forma muy especial. Si bien es cierto que Bolivia también está tratando de hacer mejoras, pero todavía se encuentra en ese punto de necesidad de una mayor independencia y autonomía. Y esto lo digo porque traigo a colación una pequeña anécdota. Con ocasión de los 200 años del Código Napoleónico, Francia trató de sistematizar todo el producto legislativo y administrativo de su país y llegó al final a una gran conclusión. El 90% de las normas que regulan la vida en sociedad son de carácter administrativo y son sobre todo de carácter regulatorio y de entidades supervisoras. De ahí que hoy en día el punto focal que en los Estados Unidos, en el ámbito británico, en la Unión Europea, por supuesto en América Latina, pero también en Asia, en África y en Oceanía, está marcando el desarrollo de los modelos de inversión, es la mejora de los sistemas de regulación y de supervisión a partir de la independencia, tanto de opciones de captura por parte de los regulados, como muy especialmente de injerencias indebidas por parte del gobierno. Y en esto Colombia ha hecho un esfuerzo extraordinariamente importante.
Thank you, gracias. So it seems that when we are dealing with investment, everyone has taken us through the administrative regulation. You made a reference to the codified system and how they come together. But I think that Stacy from Robbins Kaplan, now we are heading north, she may give us a view about something different, which is in practice, when investment comes to reality, we use Anglo-Saxon model. So what is your perspective on this?
Thank you. My name is Stacy Slaughter. I am a partner at Robbins Kaplan. I have been practicing for 20 years. What makes the United States an attractive place for investing is actually the remedies that you can get when investments go wrong. You can sue, and we have a robust legal system in which to do that. My practice is primarily focused in federal courts. I have a number of cases in federal court in New York. I also have arbitrations that involve financial products. The types of investments, and I come at this from being a litigator, a trial lawyer. So the types of investments that I've litigated when they've gone sour are residential mortgage-backed securities, leveraged buyouts and take-private transactions by private equity companies. Right now, I have a client in the LIBOR litigation in the Southern District of New York. So the London Interbank Offered Rate. There are a number of products tied to the LIBOR rate. And if there's collusion to suppress that rate, then if you are a receiver of LIBOR on these products, then you're receiving less than you should have. I mean, that's basically what the LIBOR litigation involves in the Southern District of New York. So any type of market manipulation cases that are related to a benchmark like that, you're probably the foreign exchange rate market manipulation case. So that's another case that has been litigated and settled in the Southern District of New York. So all of the major investment banks who were involved in that, I think except Credit Suisse, has settled that case. So that's also what makes litigating in the US attractive, because victims of investment or financial fraud get real dollars at the end of the day. They get money back. And you also have the ability to sue as a class. So you can represent a named representative who represents everyone who is similarly situated who lost money. So that's another advantage of litigating in the US. But those are just some highlights and broad brushstrokes of my practice and the forum in the US.
Thank you. Well, I think we've got quite an interesting overview. And Marlene, which is our scribe, our relator, which is a very trendy concept, by the way, in Spain in the last few weeks. I think she will make a great summary of all this. Now we need to jump into a different concept. We've been hearing about how local governments regulate when they need to deal with themselves. But what about when they need to come out and they need to negotiate bilateral treaties with different countries? What makes different those bilateral treaties coming from each of the jurisdiction? And I'm sure we will be able, in the second part of the talk, on the second hour, to hear interesting questions and comment from the floor. So, Isaiah, in your view, what are the main features of bilateral treaties negotiated from Turkey?
Hello, everyone. Good morning. My name is Isaiah Soval-Levine. I'm an American Paris-based attorney who spent in professional and personal capacity something like 10 years in Turkey, so that's why I'm here speaking about Turkey, which seemed kind of out of left field. But so Turkey has a quite robust network of BIT treaties. I think at this point there are 82 in force, another 44 that are signed but not in force. As a general statement, they're all very investor-friendly. They have fair and equitable treatment provisions, full expropriation clauses that aren't limited to disputes over the quantum of compensation, full FSP clauses, and generally very generous or sort of full access to arbitration for investors with claims against respondent states. I think in part, or in good part, this sort of investor-friendly approach is driven by the fact that Turkey is as much an exporter of investment as it is a recipient of investment. To turn to sort of a very unique and maybe somewhat unfortunate feature of BITs is that in some cases, the cases that we've seen come out of involving Turkish BITs, there's been a lot of litigation over some investment arbitration clauses that are worded ambiguously in English. So just to summarize, they say, a dispute may be submitted to ICSID or UNCITRAL or ICC, provided that if the investor has taken the claim to local court and the court has not rendered a decision with 18 months. So in English, you think, well, okay, there's something missing, and then it's not quite certain what that means. there have been two jurisdictional decisions that have ruled on this. They've come out in opposite ways. I worked on one of those cases, so I have a clear preference for which one I think is the better interpretation. But that, I mention it because that wording or similar wording is present in 19 other BITs that Turkey has signed. So it's not just limited to the BITs that have been litigated. There's also, it's also potentially an issue that comes up in for other investors from other countries. And I guess last but not least, it's worth noting that Turkey has been active in updating its BITs in the last maybe 2 or 3 years. It has replaced 8 BITs and sort of updated them with what sort of modern BIT practice is, sort of more precise definitions of FET standards, introducing time limits for submission of claims, things like that. And 3 new BITs that had entered also have sort of new and innovative features, such as definitions of investment that must be sustainable or must sort of make a tangible contribution to the receiving state. So I think Turkey is very much a very active participant in the BIT space.
Okay, thank you. Just for my own benefit, you said that those 2 cases that were contradicting were UNCITRAL arbitration?
They were ICSID. It was Kilic was one and Sahil was the other.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. Thanks. Now, Claudio, Italy. What about bilateral treaties?
But I am an Italian lawyer. I've been practicing for 35 years, mostly in the northeast of Italy. This is the most industrialized and productive area of Italy. My clients are usually firms and small, medium, and big-sized companies. And my firm is very present in northeast of Italy for a long time. And to answer to the question, I think I have to begin to exceed the statistics about Italy, because it's very interesting statistics about cases regarding Italy. In 2018, came up 56 new registered cases under the ICSID Convention. Countries consent to ICSID jurisdiction in a variety of treaties, contracts, and domestic laws. For those cases registered in 2018, BITs were the primary instrument, 57%, followed by investment contracts between investor and the host state and other international treaties. Energy Charter Treaty accounted the remaining 10%. In 2018, Italy was party only in one of those 56 cases as host country of the investment. In the last 5 years, since 2014, only 11 cases in which Italy is party as a host country of the investment are pending or concluded under ICSID jurisdiction. In all those 11 cases are involved only the only energy sector and the oil sector, in 11 cases. Investors never invoke BITs, which involve Italy as host country. Investors invoke the Energy Charter Treaty, in which Italy is part as a European Union member. Home investor country is always an European Union member, Italy included. As a consideration, statistics shows that actually there isn't an issue for investment protection about BITs in which Italy is involved as a party. Using BITs in which Italy is involved as a respondent party, often as a European Union member, are working very well. And also, Italian rules are working very well for foreign investment, and there are not specific issues for foreign or Italian investors. Italian law is not different in protection for Italian investors and foreign investors. And the law modification don't have different consequences for Italian and foreign investors. For instance, when there was a modification of Italian solar power regime, modification was forced by European Union and produced equal effects for Italian and foreign investors. So I think about Italy and BITs.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I think that some of the issues that you introduced are connected with the next topic, which is around arbitration, purely arbitration, investment arbitration, and the European project to set up the permanent investment court. I think the view of Santiago Solines would be also an interesting one to add into this. Thank you.
Thank you, Paulino. I'm Santiago Solines from Quito, Ecuador. I'm a senior lawyer and partner of Solines Asociados. That is a full service, full cooperative service law firm in my country. For the technical subject and taking advantage of the simultaneous translation, I will be talking in Spanish. Right? Bueno, voy a hacer un contexto rápidamente. El Ecuador, los últimos 10 años, con el anterior presidente Rafael Correa, tuvo un crecimiento sostenido importante en la región, pero básicamente por inversión pública. Como ustedes saben, el esquema que planteó el presidente durante 10 años fue un esquema bastante concentrado en el sector público, inversiones del sector público que dinamizaba la economía, y dejó a un lado la inversión extranjera. Y esto redundó en que efectivamente Colombia y Perú, países vecinos, crecieran igual o un poco más al ritmo que Ecuador, que eran los países que más crecían en la región, al 6-7%, pero la diferencia es que Colombia y Perú se centraron en captar inversión extranjera. Ecuador no. Para tener una perspectiva, los últimos datos del año pasado, tanto Perú como Colombia, Perú con 7.000 millones y Colombia con 13.000 millones de dólares en inversión extranjera directa, y Ecuador no llegó a los 1.000 millones, se quedó en los 800 millones de dólares. Eso implica que efectivamente el modelo optado por el presidente Correa en su momento era un modelo que no permitía ese crecimiento del aparato productivo, que también tuvo un efecto de espejo en el sector privado interno, ¿no? Es decir, los inversionistas nacionales tampoco invertían como debían, de hecho abrieron muchas subempresas en Colombia y en Perú. Esto es un poco de contexto para que entendamos por qué ahora con el nuevo gobierno, que decidió desmarcarse del gobierno anterior en sus políticas públicas, tanto en la parte de inversión privada, en el tema de incentivo al aparato productivo, y en los sectores estratégicos como energía, donde está incluido la minería, ha tenido un cambio de paradigma, ¿no? Ha presentado el gobierno actual, apalancado en ciertos elementos que presentó el anterior gobierno de Rafael Correa, el actual de Lenín Moreno, presentó un modelo de contrato para relaciones bilaterales de inversión, donde trata de, obviamente, incentivar digamos, la posibilidad de desarrollos de negocio en sectores estratégicos, particularmente el petrolero y el minero. Como perspectiva, aunque eso hablaré en el otro tema, pero para que tengan una idea, Ecuador es un país petrolero desde los años 70, tiene reservas muy importantes, más reservas que Colombia y que Perú en petróleo, pero realmente un país minero. Lo que pasa es que no ha explotado muy poco la minería en oro, plata, zinc. Entonces digamos que la minería se ha vuelto uno de los ejes fundamentales para este gobierno. Por eso decía que los modelos que ha planteado para tratados bilaterales de inversión está enfocado mucho en la inversión en sectores estratégicos. También el tema de telecomunicaciones, el tema de infraestructura, pero sobre todo en el tema de energía. Entonces, regresando un poco al tema de los contratos, se ha puesto mucho énfasis en la parte relacionada, primero, a delimitar lo que es inversión, para que no vengan esas inversiones golondrina, que son los que hacen mucho daño y que de algún modo han exacerbado este tipo de figuras idóneas para el comercio y para la inversión. Ha metido también mucho énfasis en la parte de la expropiación. Ustedes saben que gobiernos como el de Correa, como Cristina Fernández de Kirchner en Argentina, o en Venezuela Hugo Chávez y ahora Nicolás Maduro, etcétera, tenía un enfoque muy paternalista y de presión desde el Ejecutivo hacia el resto del mercado, y eso hacía que haya inseguridad jurídica. Entonces, parte de eso era el tema de las expropiaciones. Sí, básicamente quería decir esos dos elementos porque eran importantes que sepan cómo se maneja el tema de contratos. Gracias.
Muchas gracias. Gracias por respetar el tiempo. I think it's again important to turn back to Brazil, because I have the impression that they've got something to say about bilateral treaties. So Elisa would be able to take us through. Thank you.
Hello, good morning all. I'm Elisa Figueiredo, partner at Fernandes Figueiredo, Francoso & Petros. It's a full-service law firm also, and we have national and foreign investors. And regarding foreign investors, we help them to start that business in Brazil. And that leads to your comment, Paulino, on tax issues. Tax issues and bilateral treaties on tax. This is a very important issue. Well, one of the main issues when you start a company in Brazil, I think in most countries, is to study what are the tax obligations. And in Brazil, it's, as Rodrigo was saying, it's very complex. We have 3 levels on the cities, states, and federal taxes. So it comes that there are many bilateral treaties between Brazil and other countries, sometimes in Germany and France and things like that. So it's a very important matter to be concerned with, and there are many treaties on tax issues in Brazil. And what is also good in relating to bilateral treaties, we have some regarding making access to Brazilian jurisdiction, for example. When you are a foreign person or company, sometimes you have to make a guarantee deposit to go to court. And there are some bilateral treaties that take this obligation out, and so you can sue someone without doing this deposit that usually it runs from 1 to 10% of the dispute. So it makes easier access to justice, and I think it's a legal framework and very, very secure in Brazil. And we saw some, I think last year, the treaty, not bilateral Brazil just, but with European Union and Mercosur also regarding commercial issues. So it's not easy for Brazil, this foreign treaties, but we have to really have in mind all those treaties that I mentioned. There are some others, but there are some regarding to arbitration. If there is opportunity, we can talk afterwards.
Okay, no, for sure. But I've got one question around this, because the true reality is that today there is a new geopolitical scenario in many of the countries that we are talking around. And I think all the answers are coming about what has been in the past and what is currently there. But I've got a question about how do you see the future about Brazil and bilateral treaties? Is that going to grow? Is that going to diminish?
Well, our new government is really in favor of doing business. Okay. So if we think this way, it should grow. But on the other hand, we still don't know who are the Brazilian players who are going to deal with this. But the scenario is in favor of doing that, not only bilateral treaties, but sometimes on Mercosur or something like that. It's a pro-business government, which is good. We've been 2 difficult decades, so it's good. But regarding these issues, it's not so clear, the environment. I don't know if my Brazilian colleagues have a different opinion.
So it's pro-business, what we are going to see in the future. Yeah. Great. I think that is what everyone is expecting. So you've got the right answer then.
Thank you.
So Carlos, just to finish this chapter, could you please take us through
Sure.
how Bolivia deals with this?
Okay. So after we recovered democracy in the early 1980s, we started to, our country started to sign lots of BITs, bilateral investment treaties, which were there. And during the 90s, the international arbitration and the framework to stipulate clauses of international arbitration were more in fashion. I mean, everybody was doing that. So after the new government took control, they were against international arbitration, which means that the bilateral investment treaties regain importance. Most of the big investments in Bolivia remain there, and the only protection they have are those given by the bilateral investment treaties. Huge investors normally try to shop for bilateral investment treaties, meaning that they pick a jurisdiction in which they will invest from, because the validity of a bilateral investment treaty that Bolivia still has with those countries. So it's a very important matter when you're thinking about investing in Bolivia. The most famous ones are the ones signed with the United Kingdom, with the Netherlands. Spain is also one that they are still using, but I think it's coming to an end in the near future. But the message I want to leave is that it's not a simple issue, but it's a very, very important tool to protect investments when you go to countries like ours.
Okay, thank you. Very interesting. So I think we've got set up a good scenario. We know how in different countries they do things internally. We know how they negotiate when they need to deal with other parties, what they do with their bilateral treaties. But I think there is an important interest, and I've heard in many of the interventions so far, the reference to arbitration. I think that's important. We as a firm, we are very active on investment arbitration. This possibility in Europe of having a permanent court or permanent court to deal with investment dispute, I think is something everyone is looking with great interest. I would like to call back for a few opinions about how investment arbitration is approached from different countries and how they see potential changes that can improve the confidence of the international market on investment arbitration. Because at the end of the day, we discuss a lot about incentives to go and invest, but anyone doing business, I think the first question is, if anything goes wrong, how do I exit? So let's now talk about exiting. Stacy, coming from your view, you've got quite a bit of experience in the States dealing with this type of issues.
Okay. Is it? Can you hear me? No. Sure. So in terms of arbitration, I think I mentioned most typically my cases are in federal court in the U.S. However, I also have a number of arbitration matters. One of the typical, and this is when two parties agree by contract to arbitrate the dispute, so they have to agree to do that. One of the forums in which I arbitrate is called FINRA, the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority. It's a specific type of arbitration forum in the US. Right now, I represent actually a sovereign nation in that case. What you may not realize is Native American tribes in the United States are sovereign nations. So they actually have to agree to arbitrate in that forum. And I represent this tribe. They're based out of Michigan. I represent this tribe who is suing its broker, its financial advisor, and its brokerage firm for convincing them to invest in hundreds of millions of dollars of non-traded real estate investment trusts. They didn't tell the tribe that these were highly illiquid investments. There's no real market for it. There's a secondary market, but it's not traded typically like you'd trade stocks or anything like that. It's very high cost, and the returns, they're risky, and the returns are very low. So that's an example of one type where the tribe, as a sovereign nation, had to agree to arbitrate in FINRA. I've also arbitrated in the International Center for Dispute Resolution, which is a division of the AAA. I represented Häagen-Dazs International. They were sued by a company called Corporación Todo Sabor, which owned the franchise for Häagen-Dazs in Venezuela. So they sued General Mills de Venezuela and Häagen-Dazs International. They agreed, again, they agreed to arbitrate this through ICDR. They picked the location, Miami, Florida, for the arbitration. And we were able to try that case in front of 3 panel members. Each side was able to choose a panel member to hear and to oversee the dispute. And then those 2 panel members chose the 3rd panelist for that dispute. And we tried that case. It took a week. But that's another example of how the parties agree, international parties can agree to arbitrate a dispute through the U.S.
Okay, thank you. Clear. When we were open and we hear Rafael talking about investing in Ecuador, I thought really I was considering taking part of my savings and bring it there, but I think it's a good opportunity. But what if I've got well, not me, but a big company that's got a problem and they need to resort to investment arbitration?
I hope you have big savings because we need a lot of investment in Ecuador.
We'll sort it between today and tomorrow.
Okay. I actually, that's what I do in my professional life. I advise foreign investors, and the usual question is what we have been dealing with in the last, is what if? What if I have unilateral termination of the contract I signed with the state? What if I am expropriated? Or what if I'm confiscated? That is very typical and normal questions. And obviously, if the answer is you can sue, as Stacy is saying, that is an option. But if you have to sue the government with whom you've reached an agreement, it's unlikely you'll succeed. So the question is, what are options we have? And that is international arbitration. For sure, I'll share with you a case of a U.S. Oil company called Burlington that in 2008 signed a profit-sharing agreement with Ecuador. Profit-sharing means that all the investment and all the operation is done by the investor, and the country gets a percentage of the production as compensation for having granted the license. And in this case, what happened is that after a few years of exploitation, the oil price went up, and the government wanted to renegotiate the contract unsuccessfully. And then the government created a new tax for this company. And the new tax made the operation just impossible. So and later the contract was unilaterally terminated. So Burlington went into under a bilateral agreement with the U.S., the company went into a arbitration process in the Center for International Settlement of Disputes, and it ended on 2017. That is 9 years after, successfully. And the best part of it is that they were granted a $380 million fee, which the country accepted. That is the best part. Obviously complaining and arguing that all of those international centers for settlement are unfair with the government, with the states, but eventually they accepted. So I think that that is a good promotion for investing into Ecuador the experience I've shared with you.
Okay, thank you. And now I'm comforted because at the end of the day, this is a conference of lawyers talking to lawyers. So we don't mind if a case is litigated 9 years, even 90 years wouldn't be a problem, provided that we regularly bill and get paid. I had the impression on the case you mentioned that was the case.
So you're coming to Ecuador. So
that's very good news for everyone.
You're coming to invest in Ecuador.
Yeah.
Then.
No, really. You're making the day, really. Okay. What about your view, Isaiah, on investment arbitration? You've got three angles here: the States, Turkey, and French angle.
Oh, well, I came prepared to talk about Turkey, so I'll talk about Turkey. But I do think if we look at the experience arbitrating with or from Turkey, I think there's three aspects we can look at. The first is sort of the experience of foreign investors in Turkey, and here I think Turkey's been very successful. It's participated in 13 investment arbitrations as a respondent. It has lost one. Of those 13 cases, a little more than half of them were really more about sort of internal political disputes more than like actual questions about treatment of foreign investors. Just for comparison's sake, if we look at the number of cases that Spain has been involved with in an international arbitration, it's 45. So,
but they are almost all are coming from the same source.
Right.
Okay.
So it gets exactly the point that I wanted to make, which is like when you look at the attractiveness of a country for investment or its record in terms of treating investors, these facts and figures are only one thing. But I think in the case of Turkey, we can say that for all of the ups and downs that Turkey has experienced in the last 10 years, those changes haven't directly impacted foreign investors. So that's something that's quite remarkable. On the other hand, Turkish parties have been involved as claimants in 31 arbitrations, and as I sort of mentioned before, this is because Turkish businesses are very entrepreneurial, they're very adventurous, they will go to places that other businesses wouldn't normally want to go to, like Central Asia or Libya, and so you've seen a lot of sort of disproportionate number of Turkish claims relating to those countries. And then I think the third aspect that we can look at is sort of arbitration between private parties involving Turkish claimants or respondents. They're very active, they're very involved, and just one point, if you're representing clients and they have a Turkish counterpart and they have an arbitration clause, the one piece of advice I would recommend is to look at how you would enforce the arbitration clause in a Turkish court if you wanted to get an anti-suit injunction, or how you would enforce the award in Turkey, because it may impact the drafting of the clause or other aspects of the arbitration procedure. So just keep in mind that Turkey has its own legal system, and you should be aware that things are done different there as they are everywhere else when it comes to arbitration claims.
Yeah, no, clearly enforcement is the key factor on this, and maybe in the next part of the story of the conversation we can have some views about difficulties enforcing awards on investment arbitration. We've got one last intervention connected with arbitration with Lisa, but I would like to ask two questions at the same time to Lisa. Number one, investment arbitration, but also jumping into the next topic, which is opportunities in Brazil. Just 1, 2, 3 opportunities you see.
Okay.
Because if not, everyone is going to go to Ecuador after Rafael's comment. So we need to balance the situation.
Okay. In Brazil, we have a very safe environment for arbitration, for investing arbitrations and any kind of arbitration also. We have a special chamber for all the capital stocks arbitrations. It's related to the SEC of Brazil, which is called B3 nowadays. And we have a safe environment because we have a very strong law and it's been updated. Now we can have arbitrations not only by private people, but all government branches also. So investing in Brazil, if you convince the government branch to put the arbitration clause, then you can go to arbitration also for with the government branches. And arbitration is been really well respected by the Brazilian courts. They do not go into issues they are not supposed to get into. So if you have an arbitration decision, you probably you'll have to accomplish with it. The Brazilian jurisdiction do not change, or you are not supposed to discuss again on the judiciary, which happens in some countries, as we've been hearing and in other Congress that we had last year, for example, from ELEX. And so it's really safe, and go to Brazil and invest, and if you have any trouble, you have a safe environment to litigate, no problem. And well, regarding the investments in Brazil, considering we have plenty lawyers, I will divide in two topics. One, more interested for lawyers, which should, how can we help our clients? So compliance and corporate governance are two main issues now in Brazil. As you know that car wash operation and all these corruption issues. So many companies finally are investing in compliance and corporate governance, so it's a good issue.
Not easy for law firms. The SUSEP doesn't make easy getting there.
Yeah.
Even though.
Yeah, and no, of course. And also, I think it's for M&As also. I think now that we have this pro-business government, I think it's going to start again increasing consolidation of companies in many things. So this is when we lawyers are going to work a lot. And for companies, I would say infrastructure issues that I lead to my colleagues after to talk a little bit about, and real estate. I've been in favor of some Spain also. Spain investors in Brazil, they came back to Spain. I think it's time to go back to Brazil. Our Superior Court, they have been doing a great job on pacifying the most contradictory issues. So now we have from our Superior Court all these already settled. So if you're gonna start a new real estate business, you have also a safe environment. Since last October, if I'm not mistaken, there was just entered in force in December a new law on also on real estate issues. So it's a very good environmental, and also, of course, IT. I think it's also environment and energy also. I think there's the most.
So thank you. Maybe Gabriel can give us a quick view also about investment opportunities in Colombia.
Maybe in Colombia you are going to find several fields, all of them quite attractive. But I would like to recommend maybe the energetic sector for one main reason. We depend a lot on hydroelectric sources in Colombia. More than 85% of the energy in Colombia depend on water. And that entails a lot of risks today and in the future. And we're obliged to change the model. To change in order to improve the productivity, we are talking about renewable sources, not only aeolic, but also photovoltaic sources. And nowadays, we are more than 50 million people, and it's one of the most important economy in the region. But we depend a lot on one model, the classical renewable energies. But in the future, in the next 10 or 50 or 12 years, we are going to produce more than 20% of the energy in this new field, renewable sectors in Colombia. And this is a quite attractive sector for all of us to invest in the future.
Okay. Thank you. Turning back to Carlos, maybe. So we've, it seems there is an excellent opportunity for real estate in Brazil and for renewables in Colombia. What about Bolivia?
Bolivia, as I said before, it's a very rich country in many terms. The natural resources, of course, mining. It's been really big in Bolivia. Everybody knows a little bit about Bolivia. They all think about Potosi and all the mining industry that went on for several centuries. So we're very experienced on that, and I think in the following 2 or 3 years there will be lots of opportunities on that field. But of course we are constructing our basic infrastructure, so there is lots of opportunities in road construction and the development of the telecommunications and the most basic the basic services sectors, no, most of them. But agriculture is huge in Bolivia, and then what we call the non-traditional sectors are becoming bigger and bigger. We have a great workers, and the manufacturing industries are growing. No, the ones that noticed this were our closest neighbors. So in the last few years, we had lots of investments from Peru, from Chile, believe it or not, from Chile, but from Peru, from Ecuador, from Argentina and Paraguay. So once the Europeans and the Americans retired from Bolivia, our neighbors felt less afraid to invest in Bolivia, and they're making huge gains. My hope is that once we recover the rule of law and we reinstate all these tools of protection for the investments like VATs and we go back to the international arbitration institutions, bigger actors will come to invest to Bolivia in all of these sectors, and the sky is the limit for them.
Thank you. No sé si Carlos tendrá alguna visión adicional sobre invertir en... Perdón, Santiago. Estaba pensando Carlos diciéndole adiós. Perdón. Decía, no sé si Santiago tendrá algo que añadir sobre Ecuador.
O sea, yo quiero un poco, digamos, poner en contexto en base a la línea de explicación de la anterior pregunta, que Ecuador, igual que la región, tiene mucho potencial en riqueza natural. Les anticipaba que en el caso de Ecuador, solamente el 10% de la riqueza minera se ha explotado en el país. Tenemos más de 700.000 hectáreas por analizar si es que realmente hay potencial, hay ese potencial minero que se calcula que hay. Con, por ejemplo, el oro nuestro, el oro de Ecuador, es un oro muy preciado porque tiene una pureza particularmente especial, tiene muchísimo cobre. Entonces se calcula que, digamos, en el desarrollo dentro del presupuesto general del Estado para los próximos 10 a 15 años, el Ecuador va a crecer en ese rubro y va a pasar en el presupuesto general del Estado la minería a ser del 4% al 15% del presupuesto general del Estado. Eso es muy importante, ¿por qué? Porque vamos a bajar la incidencia del petróleo en el presupuesto general del Estado. El Ecuador tiene más o menos 8.000 millones de barriles bajo la tierra por explotar aún. Producimos 500.000 barriles día y somos dependientes en gran medida del petróleo, y la idea es que justamente se pueda buscar esta otra fuente. Y en cuanto a energía renovable, por ejemplo, está buscándose el cambio de la matriz de consumo. Es decir, si bien Ecuador tiene muchísima energía hidráulica, y el anterior gobierno invirtió decenas de miles de millones de dólares en proyectos grandes hidroeléctricos, pero más allá de que tenemos una riqueza hídrica muy importante y por ende nuestra energía producida por recursos hídricos es barata, pero el introducir, por ejemplo, energía eólica o fotovoltaica es y también con biomasa, pero sobre todo estas dos, es una asignatura pendiente que está enfocado justamente a un cambio de la matriz de consumo, es decir, que la producción industrial, el consumo en los hogares, el consumo en transporte público, sea a través de energía renovable. Pero sobre todo es un tema de integración. O sea, si Perú, Colombia y Ecuador se integran y tenemos un mercado de 100 millones de habitantes, en vez de tener cada uno por separado un mercado más pequeño, sin duda va a hacer eso mucho más fuerte. De hecho, con Europa, estamos nosotros de Ecuador firmando el tratado, es multilateral, realmente no es bilateral, de inversión, como lo hizo Colombia y Perú, pero la idea, creo yo, que va a un enfoque también de integración comercial y de inversiones también en la región. Y creo que pasa por ahí. Y veo que los gobiernos y las legislaciones están logrando eso. En el Ecuador se aprobó recién una ley de fomento productivo que está enfocado justamente en temas de exenciones tributarias, arancelarias, en ciertos sectores estratégicos para el país, agroindustria, temas de energía, temas de pesca, etcétera. Y la idea es que, de algún modo, estas legislaciones también se vuelvan comunitarias, ¿no? Por lo menos de la comunidad andina. Entonces, hay mucho por hacer en materia legislativa, hay mucho por hacer desde el ámbito privado porque hay mucho potencial en América Latina, en Ecuador particularmente hay mucho potencial en temas energéticos, en temas de agroindustria. No sé si sepan ustedes, pero Ecuador sí es un banana republic. Tenemos el 33% de la producción del banano en el mundo es suministrada por el Ecuador.
Compitiendo con la Canaria española.
Sí, pero Ecuador llegó a crecer de tal forma que tenemos el 33% digamos, del mercado mundial, igual con el camarón y la rosa. Entonces, hay mucho por hacer en los países de la región, pero también meter valor agregado, porque ahí está el kit, ¿no? O sea, que logremos que esos productos primarios pasen a tener un proceso de, digamos, de elaboración más sofisticada que te dé un valor agregado y puedas ganar más dinero, evidentemente. Entonces, hay mucho por hacer, es un continente y un país, particularmente Ecuador, con mucha riqueza, y la idea es que haya mucha inversión, tanto local, interna, como extranjera. Eso es.
Muchas gracias, Santiago. Just a last view to Brazil. Anything to add on opportunities?
I think in the last years we have been through very difficult times in Brazil. I think everybody knows that the Working Party made a lot of problems in terms of investment in our country, mainly in the last 10 years. But we have a lot of projects to liberalize some sectors that were still not liberalized in Brazil. Just to give some numbers, in the end of last year, we published the documents, the regulations of the public bids for airports, railways, and port terminals in Brazil. It's going to finish in March 2000 this year. It's for 12 airports in the north and northeast regions of Brazil, 1 railway, and 3 port terminals in Brazil. We expect to attract 17 billion euro for this infrastructure. In the energy sector, we have our energy source is composed 46% is in the hydro source, and we have a 10 years plan to change our energy metrics. We expect to have, we only have 1% of sun generated energy, and we expect to have both in the sun generated energy 20% of our energy source. We expect to attract 80 billion euro this year in changing of some bids, and well, Brazil corresponds to 49% of South America, so we need a lot of transmission lines. So only in transmission lines we expect to attract 25 billion euro and 45 billion euro in the generation of energy, just to give you some numbers.
Okay, thank you. Very interesting. So I think that international, you like to add, say for sure.
I am member of some of big companies. I'm in the board of this company. Obviously, the major roadmap for investment in Brazil, it's infrastructure right now. But one thing very interesting to make business in Brazil is to find out some companies that can add productivity for the big companies. So it's a special contracts in some segments. For example, food, health. It's necessary to improve the productivity right now in Brazil in many sectors. So sometimes you have a small client or some client is specialized or with a big specialization. It's a good opportunity to find out specific industries and to give tools, technology tools, or some tools that are or intend to increase the productivity. This is on specifics of Brazil right now.
Okay, thank you. So something in parallel to what we heard about Ecuador also. Now, I don't know from Italy if we've got any comments about opportunities before we go to our panelists and the floor, please.
But probably my colleague then to tell about this. But I want only.
So shall we
only say something about opportunity, because I think that I said BIT rules are not a problem, but I think that you have to pay attention to other aspects, because Italy as a country nowadays is still divided in a lot of different areas, very different from each other. And you have to find a local institution if you want to find a good investment and a good information about investment. And so it's very important in Italy too, but is not so, there is not enough knowledge about this aspect, because they think that you go to Rome, to go to Milan, and you obtain to get good information about investment. But it's not true, because you have to go in the single areas and to have a professional and good institutions like Chamber of Commerce, for example, local Chamber of Commerce, that can give you some good information.
Okay.
So it's important.
Well, I think your partner, Enzo, sorry, may add something about Italy, please?
Gracias. De mi experiencia de abogado italiano que se ocupa de derecho laboral a favor de las empresas y de los contratos de agencia y distribución, tengo una visión privilegiada de las oportunidades de mi país. La sede principal de mi bufete se encuentra en Verona, en la región de Veneto. Verona, conocida como la ciudad de Julieta y Romeo, se coloca en una posición estratégica, cruce de autopistas que conectan Europa, el norte con el sur y el oeste con el este. Desde hace algún tiempo ya la economía de Veneto se ha convertido en un modelo internacional, tanto así que se habla del caso de Veneto, para referirse al modelo particular de crecimiento económico desarrollado en esta región del noreste italiano. Desde muchos años, el Producto Interno Bruto de la región ha conservado una tendencia de crecimiento continuo, uno de los niveles más notables de toda Europa. Como consecuencia, se puede decir que esta economía reúne las características de un crecimiento homogéneo y equilibrado, implicando sectores que abarcan desde la agricultura a la manufactura, del comercio artesanal al comercio y servicios, incluso los más avanzados. Además, el Véneto registra también las mejores calificaciones por su industria turística, con Venecia y Verona. Es también la región italiana que ha conseguido mantener las mayores tasas de empleo, resguardando empleos a pesar de los difíciles tiempos económicos recientes. Los valores fundamentales que caracterizan el modelo de Véneto pueden resumirse de la siguiente manera: empresas pequeñas y medianas, coexistencia de productos tradicionales con actividades de tecnología de vanguardia, internacionalización de los mercados y flexibilidad en la organización. Los principales sectores de producción son la manufactura, que se distingue por su alto nivel de diversificación y de especialización, entre los cuales están el sector de la confección, del textil y del calzado, que es prácticamente sinónimo, de hecho en Italia, en el mundo entero. El sector de ingeniería metalmecánica, dentro de este sector la electromecánica y la metalistería, el sector ebanistería y fábrica de muebles, la producción de maquinaria y tecnologías para la transformación de mármol y granito, de la industria textil, el sector de curtido del cuero, la construcción, la elaboración de la madera y el sector de la calefacción y de la climatización. La originaria vocación agrícola de esta región de Italia ha logrado renovar y modernizar sus métodos, esforzándose por alcanzar una producción de la mejor calidad, estableciendo vínculos estrechos con la industria. Un punto fuerte de la agricultura de Veneto está representado por la producción vinícola. Acorde a su progresión económica, los últimos años también han visto grandes desarrollos en el sector de servicios que asegura ahora un soporte válido a la vitalidad del sistema de producción en el campo del crédito financiero y de servicios de comercio y negocios en general.
Muchas gracias. Una visión muy completa de lo que podemos hacer en Italia. Yo creo que sería interesante cambiar ahora de zona con nuestros panelistas y Omar quizá nos pueda dar some views from Middle East.
Thank you so
Please.
much,
Do you need a mic? Thank you.
My name is Omar Al-Jazi. I'm managing partner of Al-Jazi & Co. It's a general practice law firm. I sit on a member of the ICC Court of International Arbitration and the PCA. My focus, 50% of my time devoted to arbitration. But to be honest with you, and I really enjoyed the panel and what they have said, and definitely we share the same request by any foreign investor regarding the safeguards. The first time they call you, they tell you, are you very well connected with the government? That's the most important question. Are you a member of the New York Convention, exit, etc.? And then they will ask about the investment incentives. But definitely in our region, still how you are connected to the government, it's so important, I think. I think what the results of the recent arbitral tribunals, the awards, have become a very source of irritation, to be honest with you. We have a lot of problems. I had the honor to represent Jordan in a different arbitration cases. And before that, and during the negotiations, the most important sovereign matter for us, it was the applicable law. We did not mind to go to arbitration. Definitely, the local courts were refused by the investors. But the applicable law, to have a Jordanian law, it was no-go. It was the most important thing. But we are facing some problems even with the BITs, double taxation treaties, and especially the arbitration. When in different cases, with various cases, what we have faced is the bleeding when it comes to the fees, to be honest with you. Don't think that the sovereign state has an open budget. On the contrary, the private client and the private investor, I think they have an open budget in many cases because it's a small country, a limited budget. You cannot invest as the investor is investing in its case. Jordan's economy is a service-oriented economy. We have ratified exit, Washington Convention, New York Convention, one of the most Arab countries, the first Arab countries. We are pegged to the dollar as a currency, of course, but we have a very modern piece of legislation. But I want to end up my comment on that. Even if you have the greatest legislation, it's all about the political will. Does the government really intend to protect and secure the interests of this investor? Is it a win-win situation, or do you think that they will win this battle and they will lose the war at the end. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Omar, and thank you for keeping with time. Very interesting. Please.
Yes, thank you. There are some cases in which arbitration must be applied also for
Sorry,
investment.
would you mind just mentioning your name and your firm, please? Just
Thank you.
country.
Okay,
Thanks.
so I'm Montefar from Montefar International Firm, Guatemala. There are some cases of arbitration which is important. I'm referring for the tax administration. They are not a case of paying or not paying taxes, but there are technical items which must be discussed between the company or the taxpayer and the tax administration. In telecommunication, in power and energy generation, in transportation, in all the fields, are some technical items that are not shared between the tax administration and the company. And there are some countries that have introduced the arbitration for the tax administration, but I would like to suggest that more countries in Latin America, because we are trying to improve the foreign investment in Latin America, but the company fear that the fourth of the commerce institution or agencies of the governments are doing could be affected, and fear the tax administration, which do not understand the effort that the commerce authorities are doing, and that fear provokes that the investment would like to look for other opportunities, other horizons, and I have visited all the countries of Latin America, and I found the more or less the same fear. Probably we need in Latin America to introduce that kind of arbitration. Thank you.
Okay. Well, it seems from what we heard today that there is quite an appetite and an interest to promote that. So thank you. We've got two partners from Torres Plus and Araujo in Venezuela, because I think it's going to be very interesting to hear their views.
Well, my name is Juan Domingo Alfonso Paradisi, and I am a senior partner of Torres Plus y Araujo. And as I wrote, I would like to explain a little bit the situation in Venezuela, and I am going to change to Spanish, to switch to Spanish. But I would like to take advantage of this scenario, international scenario, and this important world law meeting, explain the situation in my country in 4 minutes. En Venezuela, el diputado y presidente de la Asamblea Nacional, lo que se llama en España las Cortes, no se autoproclamó. Dada la inexistencia el 20 de mayo del 2018 de elecciones democráticas, libres, competitivas, justas y transparentes, y dado el hecho de la culminación del periodo constitucional 2013-2019, no existió presidente constitucionalmente electo en Venezuela. El presidente de la Asamblea Nacional, electa democráticamente por el pueblo venezolano en diciembre del 2015, con fundamento en la Constitución, en su artículo 233, asumió ope legis, de pleno derecho, de manera transitoria, las funciones del Poder Ejecutivo Nacional, en rescate de la Constitución y de la democracia en Venezuela. El 10 de enero del 2019, el ciudadano Nicolás Maduro usurpó el Poder Ejecutivo al juramentarse para un nuevo periodo constitucional y así prolongar de manera irregular el ejercicio y ocupación de la presidencia de la República, ya que no fue electo de manera democrática. Y así, muchos miembros, como muchos de sus países de la comunidad internacional, no han reconocido a Maduro ni tampoco asistieron a su pretendida juramentación. En base a la Constitución vigente de Venezuela, toda autoridad usurpada es ineficaz y sus actos son nulos. Es por ello que el presidente de la Asamblea Nacional, para evitar un vacío de poder y para el rescate de la Constitución, asumió el 23 de enero pasado las funciones del Poder Ejecutivo Nacional de forma interina, con fundamento en otro artículo de la Constitución, que es el 333, el presidente de la Asamblea Nacional ha cumplido su deber de colaborar en el restablecimiento de la vigencia de la Constitución y del Estado de Derecho. El presidente de la Asamblea Nacional, junto con el pueblo venezolano, en cabildo abierto, desconoció el régimen que ha contrariado los principios y valores democráticos, las reglas del derecho, y que ha menoscabado los derechos humanos, salud, alimentación, libertad, seguridad, propiedad, entre otros, y ha ocasionado una tragedia nacional que requiere de la ayuda internacional y de la ayuda humanitaria. La Asamblea Nacional, con base en los artículos 233 y 333, ya terminó.
Perdón.
Ya terminó, estoy en el último párrafo.
¿Sabes? Evidentemente no he querido interrumpirte. Creo que además tienes la simpatía de muchos de los asistentes, pero lo que yo no quiero es frustrar las expectativas de los compañeros que estaban esperando que hablásemos de las inversiones en Venezuela. Sí. Yo te rogaría que, por favor, centrases también ese punto porque es muy importante.
Señala que una vez cesada la usurpación de poder por Maduro, convocará elecciones libres y transparentes. El presidente de la Asamblea Nacional ha dictado decisiones muy importantes desde el punto de vista económico. Esas decisiones son que ha nombrado a la Junta Directiva de Petróleos de Venezuela, ha nombrado a la Junta Directiva de Citgo, que es una compañía transnacional muy importante en los Estados Unidos de Norteamérica, y está entonces dando luces para abrir la economía venezolana y para abrir la inversión en Venezuela. Se ha dicho que otros países, por ejemplo, tienen mucha inversión en materia minera o petrolera, como el caso venezolano. Y en el caso venezolano, y con esto culmino, también se está hablando por el presidente de la Asamblea Nacional de la creación de una agencia de energía, entre otras también el petróleo, a los efectos de incentivar las inversiones venezolanas. Lo que quería en este ámbito internacional, dado que lo puse incluso por escrito, es procurar e incentivar, dada la situación que está viendo Venezuela, de la ayuda internacional y que entendiesen desde el punto de vista constitucional lo que está sucediendo. Muchas gracias.
No, y agradezco mucho porque yo creo que todos al hablar de Venezuela estamos esperando que de alguna manera hablases de lo que está pasando y te lo agradezco que lo haya hecho de manera muy concisa y sobre todo de que haya hablado de algo muy importante. Como decía, se ha hablado mucho de lo que ha pasado, de lo que está pasando, pero tú también estás hablando de lo que crees que va a pasar y me parece que también es algo muy positivo para muchos de los asistentes y te agradezco mucho tu intervención.
A la orden.
We've got also some views from Mexican colleagues that would be probably of interest.
Thank you.
Thanks.
My name is Juan José Díaz Mirón. I'm a partner at Díaz Mirón y Asociados, and it's a pleasure to talk to you about the Mexican point of view in terms of investing. I think we can all agree that Latin America is fertile grounds for investing, and there's a lot to be done still. In Mexico, right now we're going through a new federal administration. It's 3 months in, and right now we've seen more strikes than ever in Mexico, for example, in the first 3 months. So Mexico is and still will be fertile grounds for investing, but it is very important as counselors and advisors that if you have companies in Mexico that you revise and you review the clauses, specifically the labor clauses, because even though we have a precedent from a leftist point of view, it's kind of ironic that we have had the most strikes ever in 3 months. So it's really important that all of us and all of you that have investing or investors in Mexico, that we go over the contracts and that we go over our labor and employment clauses, okay? I believe that even though everything that's happening, we just closed a treaty with the US and Canada in December, which was really important for us. But I think the most important message that I want to get across to all of my colleagues is Mexico is and will be a safe place for investing, but we need to revisit specifically the labor and employment clauses.
Okay, so that's a new piece of advice, which is focusing on labor law. We've heard nothing today about Central America, a lot about South America, nothing about Central America, and I think that someone from Montufar, an international law firm, would be here to speak about Guatemala. Yeah? Okay, so that's covered already. Thank you. Any other person interested on? Yes, please.
Hi, my name is Gustavo Grau. I'm a lawyer, leading partner in a law firm in Caracas, Venezuela as well. First of all, I subscribe every word that Juan Domingo has said just a few minutes ago, but specifically in the field of the international arbitration, I don't know, but I want to say that Venezuela has a lot to teach about what do you expect if you have plenty confidence in the legal structure that you design to offer to the investors an international arbitration process, and the state start to sabotage, okay, all the ways that you have. For example, Venezuela get out from the ICSID convention, and that was the first step in order to avoid the execution of any kind of award that the investors get through ICSID procedure, for example. And now Venezuela has facing an immense threat, okay? And that threat, it's, for example, related, my question, my intervention in this one maybe could be addressed to Stacy, because she's the lawyer specializing in the US, okay? Now, there are a lot of investors that already has ICSID award or commercial award against the government of Venezuela or against the Venezuelan. And now they need to execute all those awards against Venezuelan assets located in the United States. As you pretty much to know, the United States has used in the past an important law, the International Emergency Power Act, okay, in 2 cases that are being studied right now in order to determine if they could put in again that law in the case of Venezuela. Those cases was Iran and Iraq. In the case of Iraq, okay, the United States, according with that law, okay, forbidden the continue of the execution of the arbitral awards against the Iraq asset located in the States. So now a lot of investors are concerned about if President Donald Trump maybe issue an executive order in the same way that that Ronald Reagan, Carter do it in Iran, and Bush do it in the case of Iraq, and doesn't allow continue the executing process against Venezuelan assets located in the United States. And that's not because, I don't know, without any reasons, no. Maybe they are doing that in order to try to allow a restructuring process of the debt of Venezuela. That is a very complex situation, okay, because you don't only have bonds holder, you have as well commercial debt, you have the investors that has, for example, awards against Venezuela. So I want to hear about what is the possibility that you allow in order to the government of the United States use again the International Economic Emergency Power Act in order to avoid any kind of execution, okay, against Venezuelan assets related with awards already granted by the exit or commercial courts, arbitration courts in that case. By the way, I was your counterparty in the Todos Our case. Yeah, I enjoyed the case, okay? Yeah, that's right, with Eloy and Sola. Okay. Thank you.
That was a good case.
Yeah. We have fun.
And you both got paid, which is the important bit for us.
Vale.
Okay, so Stacey, you've got any comment about that?
So I have
because
to.
I think, sorry, that really we said before, enforcement is always the real challenge, but freezing orders, injunction, interim measure, I think that is one of the very first things to look at before entering into the contract, isn't it?
So first I'll apologize because that's a pretty specific statute and I have not looked at it or done the research on that. But what I will say is if you remember in our case, we actually had a counterclaim. So your client sued our client and then we counterclaimed. So we had a monetary counterclaim. After we got the judgment, you might remember what we did with that. So in the arbitration, the panel came down and awarded a sum of money to our clients. Now, we were private parties. We weren't the government of Venezuela. But we then took that judgment and filed it in the Southern District of Florida in federal court to perfect the judgment. We did get paid. Your client paid the judgment. But then the question becomes, well, if they don't, then what happens? And then you would go through the process of going after assets that are in the United States and doing asset traces and that sort of thing. But to answer your specific question, I don't have an answer because I haven't looked at that statute, and it's pretty specific. But anyway.
Thank you, anyhow. I think that we've got Kelly from Lexfin in Nigeria, giving us some views from a different part of the world.
Hello, everyone. I'm Kelly Mogo, partner at Lexfin Partners. Just a couple of words from a sub-Saharan African perspective regarding investments. So I've heard a lot about investing in Europe. I think there's a real market in Africa, particularly the sub-Saharan Africa, and particularly Nigeria as well. So Nigeria has a checkered history, and in the last 16 years we have had unbridled democratic reign, and that has introduced a lot of things, one of which is the perfection of investment laws. There is a deliberate attempt, and this weekend we're having our presidential elections, and for the first time there's a lot of talk about investments, about creating an enabling environment, because the government realizes that, hitherto the government has been a monolithic economy relying on oil. But the government realizes that to grow infrastructure and to get commercial value from the economy, there's the importance of having foreign direct investments. And so there's a lot of discussion around creating an enabling environment for that. Laws have been passed. Just about 2 weeks ago, we had the competition law passed. And so I'm just saying that that environment is overripe for investment from other parts of the world. But a critical aspect of the discussion as well is the liquidity of property and land. Up until very recently, there has always been the struggle with the Land Use Act in Nigeria, which essentially ascribes ownership of land to the governor and makes it very difficult to transfer land from one party to the other. Now, that is no longer the case. A lot of states in Nigeria have begun to adopt what is described as the mortgage foreclosure law, which essentially says you can have land transfer easily from one party to the other. There are laws on securitization that have gone through the National Assembly and are waiting execution by the president for them to come into place. So to round off, I would say investments is much encouraged. I invite parties who are looking to invest in Africa to consider sub-Saharan Africa. There's a lot of benefit to be derived. Thank you.
Thanks. That's interesting. We've got, sorry. Please, Lisa.
I'll be very fast. Commenting on Omar words, I'm sorry. The Brazil is signatory of the New York Convention of Arbitration, so you can enforce a foreign arbitration award in Brazil. And regarding Brazilian law, you can also elect the governing law of the arbitration. But then, of course, if the arbitration is taking place in Brazil, it's difficult to get arbitrators that know foreign law. Of course, you can anywhere from in the world you can ask for someone to be your arbitrator, but the arbitration chambers usually have those lists. It's not a closed list, but have those lists, so you can choose any governing law to the arbitration, but be careful when choosing the arbitrators.
Okay, thank you. Yes, please.
Okay. Well, I'm Monika Beckmann from Bremen, Germany, and just a few remarks. So Germany, I think it's the country with almost the most BIT contracts. I think there are over 130, and kind of, let's say, weird countries as East Timor or some very remote countries, and I don't think that we have any investments from these countries. One very important country we don't have any such kind of, neither double taxation, neither BIT, is Brazil. Amazing, but it is so. The hugest German agglomeration of industry is São Paulo, and we don't have any kind of these contracts, but the economy does quite well, so it goes without. The other thing I wanted to mention is the arbitration thing. We are very fond of arbitration, and we think it's a good thing, but perhaps not so good, because it's in secrecy, and we have very hard criticism against these arbitration clauses that we had with the discussion of TTIP and CETA. And I think one of the reasons it did not succeed was exactly the arbitration issue. And we had the European Court of Justice ruling on the Acmea case, which was exactly on arbitration in a BIT. It was the BIT between Czechoslovakia and the Netherlands. And the European Court of Justice said the arbitration clause in this contract is not applicable. And now, I think very recently, it was in January, that the European government said, we won't apply and we won't rely on the arbitration clauses in our BITs among European member states, because there are bilateral investment agreements which were concluded before several states adhered to the European Union, all these Eastern European countries, for instance. So, and also they said, we won't rely and we won't apply the arbitration clause in the Economic Charter Treaty, which is not a solely European thing. There are also third-party states member to it. So this is also interesting. I think there could be, states would be in favor of arbitration if it was public. So the European or a court of arbitration with public hearings and public motions, that could be a solution. But all these closed shop and closed doors approach, I think the time has gone over it, and the international need of transparency, I think, is against it. And we have also a very interesting thing. I mean, my observation, the personal view, Germany is a country which seeks investment opportunities all over the world. So sorry for that, it's kind of beauty contest, and they say, well, what is the benefits and what is the relation with the government and so on. But when it's also the object of such kind of arbitration, then they don't like it. Because we have a huge case of arbitration. It's a Vattenfall case, because Germany decided to close down the nuclear power plants. And Vattenfall said, well, we don't like it because we trusted in our investment. And now they sued Germany under the ECT contract. And we don't know how much is it, because it's all in secrecy, but we think it's 4 billion euros. And we'll see what the outcome will be. And it's not surprisingly, that Sweden says, okay, perhaps we still will rely on these ECT arbitration clauses.
Okay.
So let's wait and see, but I'm strongly convinced that we should have arbitration courts with public hearings.
Okay. So thank you, Monica. Sorry, I'm bound now to give my view on this. Now it's my turn. I think that clearly the ACME case is the trigger for the European Union movement towards a permanent court on investment arbitration. That's clear. But I would say that we all say confidentiality, you use the expression secrecy, which has both, I believe, in Spanish at least and in English has a different meaning and has different implications, because the word that we use in arbitration is confidentiality, it's not secrecy. There is quite a distance between those two concepts. I think that confidentiality is one of the advantages of arbitration, is one of the advantages of ADR in general, and that should be something in the freedom of the parties to decide. Possibly, if we are talking to investment, government investment arbitration, possibly I will have my objection to such a open comment. But anyhow, I think that for us in the legal profession, now looking from our own perspective, I think that moving between secrecy, confidentiality, and privilege is something that is within the boundaries of our profession, and we need to be protected, and we need to use it for the advantage of our clients. So I've given my view. So we've got a very important arbitration practice sitting in the States, in New York, in Paris, and in here. One of the cases that you refer was handled by one of my partners, by Eduardo Soler. In fact, the only case by now that is being won by the Kingdom of Spain, as far as I know. But we think that there is still a room for improvement on how we label, how we structure all these clauses and how these arbitration are developed. But still, we believe that is the right method to deal with some of the investment in many of the countries that we've been discussing today, really. So I think I'm missing two of the panelists' intervention. I'm missing Nikita. Yeah? From Russia, please. And we are about to finish on time. I've destroyed the possibility of finishing in time with my intervention. Sorry.
I'm going to be very fast. So, and I would really regret if this Congress would never hear the Russian voice. So, my name is Nikita Tipikin. I'm a member of American Bar New York Bar Association, and I'm a Russian lawyer. So I'm a partner of Albrecht and Witte, and we have been practicing for IP for almost 10 years. So tonight I'm going to speak about protection and investment and in intellectual property and how fun it can be to invest in Russia, actually. So to say that I am fortunate is to say nothing for the last time. Since in a blockchain law conference in St. Petersburg with my partner, we had 2 hours for speech, and my partner exhausted almost all the time, and I had only 3 minutes to speak. Well, from that time, I think of myself as a master of short pictures. And today, you will not hear any lyrics, no war and peace, just facts. Okay, if we make investments in Russia, we need to think of several things. First of all is to be brave, but not to be a hero. Even though in Russia we have pretty harsh penalties for copyright infringement for around 2 million rubles, tricky Russians will find the way to infringe your copyright. So rely on other institutions of copyright that we have. Number 2, be passionate about your investment, but be mysterious. As we know, copyright have several institutes. That is copyright, trademark, and patents. So try to use it in combination. But even though you use it in combination in Russia, it may be not enough. So try to be mysterious. Try to use trade secret and not to tell it to anyone. And number 3, we didn't talk today about GDPR. I know that you've heard about this, especially after 25th of May. And my colleague from US, I'm sure know about this too. Russia is an adequate country, as US, yes, I guess. But it doesn't mean that we are not worried about complying with General Data Protection Act. So we have lots of partners in the European Union, and we have lots of people, lots of data that we have to protect. So we have issues that we have to address together. We have lots of problems that we need to solve. And I appeal tonight to find the solution of all these decisions together, of all these problems together. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Nikita. I think that clearly you've stick to the point. Your comments about being brave but not a hero, I think that now your speech is going to be more famous. I don't know if War and Peace, because you've tell us through Crime and Punishment, which is probably a shorter version, but still
it's
very,
a little
very
bit less than War and Peace, but no less psychedelic, actually.
Thank you, and thank you for keeping the time. Well, I don't know if anyone from the floor has got any question or comments still. If not, we will be able to finish almost in time. I just wanted to thank you all for coming, particularly the keynote speakers and the panelists. I wanted you for your generosity, sharing your experiences and your knowledge about how to go to different countries to invest. I wanted also to thank you very, very firstly for keeping the time, which I have to say, I've got no expectation whatsoever, dealing with lawyers, that we will manage to do so, and you've been absolutely great, so thank you very much. It's not been easy to get together to organize team, and I think that the result is not being far. You've been very constructive. I've learned a lot, and I hope that also the floor has learned a lot. Thank you also for coming to Madrid. It's a great city. You've been blessed with the weather. This was the only important panel all the conference through, so you've got plenty of restaurants, so you can exit and go away. So thank you very much.